Hey, welcome back to the channel. In this build, we're going to make some closet doors for an 1840s log home. These doors are going to be made out of knotty pine. They're going to have raised panels, and we're going to use some spline joinery to make them easy to build. Like most projects, this one starts with rough cut lumber. In this case, kiln dried knotty pine. We're going to start by breaking down the raw boards into lengths that'll be useful for this project. We're going to take all of our boards and joint one of the faces. We need this flat face. We have a reference surface so we can pass it through the planer. I'm trying these montages out because I thought it might be more interesting than watching me push boards through the jointer and the planer and the saw for 3 or 4 minutes straight. Like all of the same excitement, but in 30 seconds. Check the mountain of sawdust made by jointing and planing just a few boards. The rails and stiles on this door are 1.5 inches thick, and they're made with 2 3/4 inch boards that have been laminated together. I'm laminating them with opposing growth rings. This should stop the boards from twisting, and we do not want twisted doors. I'm using any old wood glue for this. This is an indoor door, and I'm using a foam roller to spread it. We need lots of glue because we don't want any voids. Here's our stack of rails and stiles in clamps. Each of those Bessey clamps can exert 1,700 pounds of force. We don't have them cranked up that high, but we have a lot of pressure on these. We need to joint one edge of our laminated panels so we can pass them through the table saw. We're going to use the flat edge up against the fence. This makes it easy to break it down to the widths we're looking for. These jointed very nicely, and you can't really see the glue line. There's no voids, and this is exactly what we're looking for. These little closet doors were patterned after existing doors in the house, so we have to make sure all the rails and stiles have the same width. This means that the middle stile had to be a little bit narrower, but it'll look intentional and it'll look really pretty. I'm breaking these down into rails and stiles, using the jointed edge against the fence to get a nice straight cut. I was concerned that these might twist or deflect, but the opposing lamination seems to be doing its thing. And here's all our rails and stiles cut to width, and they're looking pretty good. I have them in clamps just to help them not do anything naughty. Check that glue line out. You can't really see it. It's very tight. I'm using the sliding crosscut here to cut all the rails and stiles to width. This giant lump of steel is a raised panel bit. I was a little concerned about using this bit. The opportunity for kickback is definitely there with a bit that big. My concerns were unfounded. This cut without any drama at all. Perhaps because it is pine, which is pretty soft. I don't know. I haven't tried it on any hardwood yet. In the end, that was pretty easy, and I think these raised panels look pretty slick. The The next step was to cut a dado on the inside edge of all the rails and stiles to fit our panel within. I also dadoed the left and right side of each rail because we're going to be splining these doors together. I might not recommend splining a door together if it's a heavy door, but these are small, lightweight pine closet doors, and I think they'll be fine. Just in case I shipped these with a 99-year warranty. Here's one of the doors dry fit. There's no glue, no splines, just clamps, just to make sure everything fits together. Here I am cutting the dados in the sides of the rails so that we can fit those splines. I had a little leftover cherry, so I decided to make the splines out of cherry. With the spline glued in, this is basically going to be like assembling a shaker door or any other cope and stick kind of setup. The raised panels float within the frame, and normally you'd use a little rubber ball called a space ball to kind of provide some cushioning, but they kept rolling away on me, so I decided to try a hot glue gun, and this worked remarkably well. I'm not sure I would recommend it, but it did work. Some of the joints had a tiny bit of lippage, so I broke out the hand plane here to clean them up. I have the blade set really shallow, and I'm scrubbing at an angle so that I don't cut too deeply into the grain. I find you get clean cuts if you pay attention to plane from grain that is parallel to the plane into grain that is perpendicular to the plane. And of course, this would not be a woodworking project without a lot of sanding, so we'll sand and work through the grits. I think it was 120, 180, 240. I finished this with Rubio, and Rubio prefers that you don't sand too finely. And while we're speaking of Rubio, this is their filler. It's powdered, you add a little bit of water, you can get it to the consistency you want, and it's really great for filling cracks or joints or knot holes in this case. This has become my go-to filler on anything that's going to be stain grade. I keep a tub of their darker round and a tub of the lighter round. The light works well on pine, maple, birch. The dark works really well on woods like walnut. I'm basically slopping this stuff into every crack and crevice on the door. I'm not too concerned about being tidy here because the stuff sands back really nicely. And here's our buddy Choppy blowing lots of air over this door to dry the filler. This is what the joints and knots look like after the filler has been sanded back. I like to go around a piece and soften all the edges because they're generally pretty sharp from the table saw, and this makes them a lot nicer to touch. To square up the door and to get it to its final height, I pulled out the track saw and cut the top and bottom off the door. And finally, it's Rubio time. Let's put a finish on this door. First thing we're going to do is pick up any dust with a tack cloth. People seem to freak out about tack cloths because they might leave an oily or waxy residue, but we're finishing the door with an oil wax finish, so that's just not a problem here. I used a white Scotch-Brite pad to rub in the Rubio. I think later on I actually switched to a blue shop rag because the Scotch-Brite pad was snagging the edges on some of the wood and leaving little bits of fuzz behind. So Rubio contains boiled linseed oil, and boiled linseed oil will yellow over time, and pine will also yellow over time. In this case, it's desired because the other doors in the house are already fairly yellowed, and we're hoping this yellows up as well. And here's a little glamour shot. Check those cherry splines and the opposing grain laminations. I think it looks pretty good. And here's those closet doors installed in the customer's place. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing and checking out some of the other videos I've made.